Hi folks, we're here now to identify the parts of a Chief steamer. Again, we're going to be working on the 100 machine, the 125, the 155. 75 is similar but a little bit different, but I think the 75 is a much simpler machine to begin with. So we have to get the lid off, which again, I always allow you to pop the lid off. The lid's held in by screws, side, front, two in the back. Lid just pops off. Very, very easy. This gives us the guts of the machine. Now again, I'm showing you the guts of my steamer where I don't think any of my competitors are really going to do that. So now that I'm showing you, we might as well identify the parts. So when I start talking and verbalizing some of the different parts in the machine, I might as well identify them so you know what they are. And if I send you a part, obviously you're going to have the new part in your hand, but we're going to know where to go to replace the part. So we'll start with the big piece. The big black thing is the boiler. So the black thing is the insulator over the stainless steel boiler, and that mounts from the bottom. We'll get to that in a little bit. Coming off the boiler, this is one of our other main components. This is the solenoid valve. So this is a common parts failure that you're going to have to replace at some point. So the solenoid valve is mounted to a fitting that goes into the top of the boiler. We never have to remove this fitting, but we do have to get the solenoid valve out, which we'll show in another video. As we make steam, the brains of the operation here is the PCB, or the computer board. So that controls a lot of things, and that's the brains, and there's a bunch of wires coming off of there. Confusing to you, not so confusing to me, but unless we're replacing this computer board, we don't need to touch anything. Down here is our pump. So this big black box right here is our pump. The pump pumps water into the boiler. Here's our incoming tube from the back of the pump. Our incoming tube comes through the machine. It comes through the water filter and into the tank. So this is a suction pump. It sucks water in. It's going to take it out. Here's a bypass valve. And there's the tube, which leads back to the water tank. And then this tube right here is going to fill our boiler through this fitting right here. We're going to go over pump replacement in another video. As the boiler starts to make steam, we have another tube that leads this way. So we have to be able to read our pressure. So the steam is made inside the boiler. It's allowed to go this way into this Y fitting. It feeds our pressure gauge on the front. So that's what tells you what pressure we're at. It feeds our pressure gauge. And on this side of the Y fitting, this is our pressure switch. So our pressure switch with the silver band going around it and a couple of wires, this is how the machine starts and stops the heater. The steam also goes through here. There's a little bladder, a spring-loaded bladder that moves up and down. It kicks on a micro switch. It tells the heater when to turn on and turn off, going back this way. This is our pressure relief valve. So if the machine ever got too hot and was at excess pressure, this valve would relieve itself. It would blow out and steam would come billowing out the bottom and make a pretty nasty noise. So if you ever hear that and steam really billowing out the bottom and what sounds like a tea kettle, then look at your gauge and see what kind of pressure we have on the gauge. And if we're overheating, we have to figure out why it's overheating. Other than that, I think we're running out of parts. This is our connector block in the front. Our connector block in the front where your steam hose goes. On the right-hand side is our nipple that flows the steam past the nipple and into your hose. We'll go over what happens when these O-rings break. And this is our connector to make the electrical connection to the solenoid valve when you request steam from your trigger. And then we have the hoses that come off. We've gone over this plastic hose that feeds the gauge. This black braided hose right here, and this hose will be different on the 125 and the 155. It's going to look like this. But as you request steam, it allows it to escape from the solenoid valve. It goes through this hose right here to our adjuster valve, which is our knob in the front of the machine, which gives you your steam volume. And then it comes down through here after the steam is adjusted and then out through the connector. And then that goes through your hose. So in reality, and then we have wires and our heater. Now we can't see our heater because we use the external heater. The heater's actually on the bottom. We're going to go over that. Heater replacement and heater diagnostics in later videos. To replace the heater, we do have to pull the boiler out, which we'll go over. But as far as parts go, these are the main components of the machine. I think it's fairly simple. I don't know what you would think, but in replacing stuff, these are the components that I might ask you to identify or ask you to replace if we figure out what particular problem there is. So this video was just a parts identification video on the 100 machine.